All right, thank you very much, Steffi, and hello and welcome everyone to this SME Connect event on the associated trio, Enhancing Cooperation for Peace, Democracy and Prosperity. As mentioned, my name is Stuart Fabian. I coordinate the working group on trade here at SME Europe, and I have the honor of being your moderator today. The event is organized in cooperation with SME Europe, the Polish Union of Entrepreneurs and Employers, and the European Enterprise Alliance and the Austrian Pan-European Movement. We've had two slight changes in the agenda, for which we apologize. As Georgian Deputy Minister of Economy, Mr. Arveladze, is currently still on a flight to Brussels due to a departure delay. Also, Moldovan State Secretary Mr. Gumene had to replace his minister in a meeting and will unfortunately not be able to be with us today. I can assure you, however, that they've been replaced by very knowledgeable interlocutors. The structure of the event will be as follows. After the opening of our gracious host, President Stefanec, the floor will pass on to our three guests representing the trio, followed by two interventions from honorable members of the European Parliament. We will then hear from representatives of the academic and business sectors, keeping a bit of time in the end for final remarks by the trio panelists. I will, of course, present the speakers before each section of the discussions. Now, turning to the substance, we always like to start with a bit of a context. So we are now witnessing a tensioned era of increased acute international competition at the global level, where many policy fields have been weaponized. Researchers study the presence of geostrategic competition below the threshold of open conflict. Hopefully it remains that way, characterized by increased hybrid influencing and interference campaigns with repercussions in cyberspace, critical infrastructure, energy security, or economic coercion, to name but a few. Some analysts are even discussing about a geopolitical rivalry between the Eurasian Economic Union and the European Union, with some states falling between these two blocs. Today's event is, however, not about the splitting of Europe into areas of influence, but rather it is to hear about the wishes, worries, and visions of the trio, made up of Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine, in their future relationship and integration with the European Union. The 2014 association agreements and subsequent deep and comprehensive free trade agreements have certainly been a good starting point. However, the question remains, where do we go next? Hopefully, by the end of this conference, we will find our answers. Now, without further ado, I would like to pass the floor for welcome and introduction to MEP Ivan Stefanec, who is member of the delegation to the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly and also president of SME Europe. Mr. Stefanec, thank you very much for joining, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Tudor, and good afternoon, everybody. So on behalf of SME Europe, really, it's my honor to welcome all of you, and particularly our important speakers today. I do believe that the debate about new associated trio cooperation is really on time, and especially in this difficult time from a security point of view. New EU+3 format represents an important strategic partnership, not only at political level, but focusing on boosting economic divergence, aiming to full integration all three countries into the European single market. This can be done via development of sectoral integration with EU, including the areas of green and digital transition, connectivity, and energy security, but also justice and home affairs, strategic communication, and healthcare. Particularly emphasis should be put on the integration into EU digital single market via enhancing connectivity and transport links between EU and the associated trio. From the economic perspective, we can see how GDP per capita and social standards grew in all three countries that became potential members of European Union. I have my personal experience from my country, Slovakia, which is quite similar. So we should not forget to put emphasis also on building resilience capacities and cooperation in the area of common security and defense policy, and also together with such institutions on the European level. Last but not least, we are now getting to the final phase of the Future of Europe conference. The name does not say Future of European Union, but Future of Europe as a whole. It means that topic of enlargement is one of our priorities for upcoming days. Finally, I can express my commitment to endorse the idea of our united Europe. So thank you very much indeed, and I wish you fruitful debates today. Over to you, Tudor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stefanec, for being here with us. Now, without further ado, I want to pass over to the speakers of the debate. As you know, we have a lot of speakers today and time is rather limited, so I will be a little bit more scrupulous, let's say, on the timing. I will first introduce the speakers. So from Georgia, we have Mariam Gabunia, who is the head for the Trade Policy Department within the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development. We have Vladimir Cuc, who is State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and European Integration of Moldova. And last but not least, we have Mr. Taras Kachka, who is the Deputy Economy Minister of Ukraine and the trade representative of Ukraine. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us today. Each of you will get 7 minutes. So please, I pass on the floor first to Ms. Gabunia. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to transmit sincere apologies of Deputy Minister Arveladze, who is now traveling to Brussels, and a few words about my background with regard of association agreement. I was coordinating the DCFTA process since very beginning, since 2009, when Georgia has started preparations for DCFTA negotiations. Then I was coordinating the negotiation itself and now implementation. I am honored to have an opportunity to participate in a panel debate regarding association trio presenting Georgia's progress towards building the European state. Apart from the common history, what unites our three countries is the European aspirations and the firm choice of our societies to become members of the European Union based on the shared European values. By signing the association agreements, including the DCFTAs more than 7 years ago, our state made a commitment to embark on a process of complex reforms in order to achieve legal and normative convergence with the European Union, and this commitment holds stronger than ever. We believe that being part of the political association and economic integration with the European Union, the three of us can benefit from our individual achievements and jointly address emerging challenges. Georgia's efforts are focused on building stronger linkages and reducing the political and physical distance and differences with the European Union. It is our intention to achieve gradual integration into the EU single market through the implementation of DCFTAs and continue to progressively align with the EU across the sectors. Let me now highlight main developments in the process of implementation of association agreement, including DCFTA. Despite many challenges, we have implemented and continue to undertake complex reforms. We are doing our best to build on our achievements and continue the transformation of our legal and institutional system according to the standards agreed in the association agreement. Progress in those endeavors will have direct implications on our quest towards the EU membership and implementation of our pledge to file an application in 2024. Since 2019, the association agreement has delivered concrete and tangible results for our country and our citizens. For the moment, Georgia has implemented almost up to 40% of the commitments. We intend to accomplish 65% of the AA commitments by 2024 that will create a solid ground for making EU membership application. To illustrate the progress, major legislative packages were adopted, such as energy efficiency laws, new customs code, upgraded labor code, food safety agency, national competition agency, market surveillance agency, new labor inspection office are just few examples of the tangible results of institutional reforms. I would like to highlight, in case of TRIO, the importance of activation of diagonal accumulation between Georgia, the European Union, and Turkey, which pave a way to similar changes in bilateral agreements of TRIO members. We are assured that this opportunity will be a good impetus to further facilitate and promote trade between our countries and stimulate new sectors to export. Diagonal cumulation has already taken effect with the Ukraine, and the consultations are going with Moldova. Implementation of DCFTA commitments is not an easy task for the government as well as for the private sector, as it is associated with increased costs, especially for SMEs. So in that process, we pay special attention to the SME adaptation to the DCFTA requirements. Our government actively works to support private sector, including SMEs, in order to raise competitiveness and meet new requirements through relevant state institutions. For that purpose, we have adopted just recently a dedicated small and medium entrepreneurship development strategy of Georgia 2021-2025 and its action plan. Strategy was elaborated with the support of the European Union and in close cooperation with OECD and GIZ. It is notable that key concept of the new strategy is again based on the principles of Small Business Act of Europe and is in compliance with the best EU practice, intending long-term sustainable targets to further enhance SME competitiveness, to respond effectively to challenges facing SME sector, mitigate the hard impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, and ensure rapid post-pandemic economic recovery. Georgia is continuing approximation of its legislation with the European Union acquis in different fields, including the sanitary and phytosanitary measures. That is one of the most sensitive sectors for Georgia, as the more than half of Georgia's population is employed in agricultural sector. As a result, Georgia has succeeded in terms of opening new market for new animal products such as honey, black sea fish, treated hide, and others. And we hope that our mutual work towards the recognition of more animal origin products will have positive outcomes. Georgia needs to have more success stories in that regard, and this is also very important for the visibility of DCFTA and EU integration process itself. All important DCFTA related issues are discussed during the DCFTA ministerial meeting between the association trio and the Commission that offers a good political steering to advance on the economic integration of the trio into the EU single market. And we are looking forward for the next third ministerial meeting in Tbilisi to be held on April 1st this year. Inspired by the success of informal DCFTA ministerial, we seek launching the similar formats for discussions in other sectors of common interest under the association agreement that will boost our efforts towards greater economic and sectorial integration with the EU, and for instance, that maybe in the areas of digital and green transitions, connectivity, energy security, and others. One of the major directions that should define the future cooperation between the EU and associated partners is, of course, connectivity. We need to transform the Black Sea into the sea of connectivity between partners as well as with the European Union. And there are a number of projects identified, and we count on the support of the European Commission for their timely implementation. Digital transformation can be also one priority area for cooperation. Georgia is working on the long-term national strategy for development of digital economy and information society and its implementation plan. The aim of the strategy is the digital transformation of Georgia's society and economy, and it will reflect the future directions of the development of electronic communications, information and modern technologies and services of the country under one umbrella. Georgia is actively involved in the EU4Digital regional program, and under this program, Georgia, together with other EAP countries, have been working to sign regional roaming and spectrum agreements. It is planned to sign both agreements in 2022. The roaming agreement is supposed to reduce roaming prices by nearly 87% by 2026, and it should also bring the national regulatory frameworks of EAP countries closer to the EU standards through the harmonization process. In conclusion, I would like to highlight that Georgia is ready to engage in a more dynamic process of convergence with the EU legal norms and standards to achieve gradual integration into EU single market which is also the essence of the association agreement. Thank you very much.
All right, Ms. Gabunia, thank you very much for your indeed comprehensive overview. Thank you also for highlighting some of the institutional reforms that have been done and for making the bridge with the digital and green areas that are so important for all of us, and also touching on connectivity. Happy now to pass over the floor to Mr. Cuc, State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and European Integration in Moldova. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Welcome to all the participants. From the outset, I could say that I could subscribe, I think, to 80 to 90% of what my Georgian colleague said, because most of the priorities and most of the, let's say, achievements are either similar or in what we have achieved or what we are aiming to achieve in Moldova. So basically, we're working exactly on the same agenda. This is why TRIO has appeared and is and will be continue to be promoted. I will, as I'm from the Foreign Ministry, I will try probably to give a more general and more broad perspective. So that's on economy. So I'm replacing my economy ministry colleague, who indeed had to step in a government meeting to replace the minister. So basically, the point number one is starting from 2014, but even before that, from 12 or 13 and 14, the association agreement is a big and major mobilizing factor, both for the society, but also for the authorities. Because when you are having an agreement, you are of this scale. This is most ambitious and the biggest international agreement, I think, which Moldova has signed. We had to build the whole system in terms of our administrative capacity to negotiate, but then to start implementing. So this is a big, maybe less visible thing. Maybe this is about bureaucracy, but this is extremely necessary because these are people who are working on a daily on a daily basis on European integration. So this is one of the invisible, very important achievements since we signed the agreement. Second, I think the agreement has been with us in good and bad times. So since we're all following stories and situation of each other, Moldova has been passing through different periods in its relationship with EU, and there were ups and downs. But I must say that association agreements set the expectation level so high and sufficiently high, so we had to confront the issues, we had to expose the issues, either our politicians or civil servants and others. So this is an important factor in cleaning up the system from corruption, for example, in democratizing so since you are subscribed this high level of commitments, then both the expectation inside the country but also outside the country are strong, and this is what has created this positive pressure, positive transformation vibe, which helps Moldova to move ahead again through difficulties, but slowly but surely moving ahead. Second, since we are talking about economy, I will just say indeed that in economic terms and in trade terms, it has been a major transformational factor. If we, in 2014, I think we were having already not a bad base, by the way, statistics, about 50% of our exports were going to EU. Now it's around 70, most of it, of course, going to neighboring Romania, but to others as well. So we have basically focused 2/3 of our exports to European market, which is much more predictable. It's with a high level of standards, which makes our let's say economy to have to adapt to this level of standards. As Georgia is, as my Georgian colleague said, that we are also working now, for example, on audits to enlarge the area of the goods we are exporting to you. If until recently we have more doing it only on vegetable type of products, now we are really looking to expand and to move to to the animal origin products, eggs and meat and others. So we are going through now important audits to show that SPS standards are being implemented. But this shows how much our economic sector is related. Also, the number of SMEs and generally the enterprises who are exporting to you has been really growing. So I think a good 70% of those who are generally doing export operations are now exporting to EU, so that's the transformative power of the agreement. Switching to TRIO, indeed we had an important summit this December. There was quite a lot of discussions on the declarations, on the declaration of the summit, and there was quite an effort, but we managed together with the member states, of course, to agree that the TRIO is acknowledged structure, or let's say a group of countries which have very similar interests, desire, European aspirations. That these countries had indeed, and I'm very glad to hear from Mariam that we are going to have a DCFTA informal ministerial meeting in April. We were looking for this date for quite some time, so now, and I understand it will happen physically in Tbilisi. So this is exactly this TRIO plus EU format which has been created in 2018. So great that we will have the third meeting of this format. But what we basically agreed at the summit is to try explore ways to expand this type of dialogue through informal ministerial meetings. And indeed, there are a number of areas mentioned that we will try to work together with Georgia and Ukraine to work on digital transitions, on connectivity and energy security, justice and home affairs, Stratcom, healthcare. So basically, I'm reading now the areas mentioned in the Eastern Partnership Summit declaration. So we will try to explore together with Commission ways to create platforms on these areas where we can actually start a ministerial dialogue. Of course, this doesn't undermine the Eastern Partnership itself. The Eastern Partnership stays as it is. We'll be working also in the format of 5, plus maybe sometimes Belarus if it will be considered to rejoin. But for the moment, we will be also working very actively on TRIO. We had a very active year last year before the summit in TRIO. The presidents have been meeting with President Michel. The Prime Minister have been visiting the Brussels. So we'll try to continue, maybe not exactly the same dynamics, but we will try to move now into the sectoral dialogues. Last but not the least, indeed, security is important. As again, I'm representing the foreign ministry, I'll have to bring this dimension as well. We will try to develop this area of cooperation with EU. Of course, according to the needs of each country, some of us maybe have much bigger needs, some of us more specific. So anyway, that security should be one of the areas where we should step up, starting from CSDP, participating in CSDP missions, cybersecurity, the countering hybrid threats, and others. I will stop here, basically saying that thanks to agreement that we will really be continuing to move forward towards the EU, as this is our let's say destination which we're aiming at. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Cuc. A very good overview. Indeed, happy to hear about the mobilizing and transformative factor that the association agreement and the DCFTA had on Moldovan and Moldovan society. Thank you also for mentioning SME competitiveness, just like your Georgian colleague before. This is something that is really important for us here at SME Connect, SME Europe. So it's important to move forward on this. And I also saw that there was one question already dropped in the Q&A. We will get back to those at the end of the discussions, should we have time. Now, I would like to move forward now to Mr. Taras Kachka, Deputy Economy Minister of Ukraine. Sir, you have the floor for 7 minutes.
Dear colleagues, it's quite difficult to add after the interventions of Georgian and Moldovan colleagues, because we have common agenda, and I think the common framework for DCFTA and the association TRIO. I would say that just to confirm that the association agreement as such adds more than just for formulas in the agreement, because it helps us to shift our trade and economy, what is sometimes even more important for tectonic shifts in politics towards the EU. Now, I think that all of us have free trade agreements, not only with the EU, but also with Turkey. And it means that in Black Sea, we have a set of free trade agreements with common rules of origin, which actually unites the EU association trio and Turkey. So with only exception of Russia, which is quite hostile to all of us and aggressive to all of us. So this process of, let's say, of liberalizing trade in the region already helps to unite states in Black Sea region. And and at the same time, I think that so that the impact of the association agreement and DCFTA is really tectonic and big. But at the same time now, for Ukraine, it's 5 years of implementation of the association agreement. For Moldova, Georgia, and so similar periods of some minor adjustments. The question is, what next? What is the future of our relations? And of course, the answer is envisaged and embedded in Ukrainian constitution, yes, so that Ukraine is aiming to join the European Union. But from my perspective, I think that the more important question is related to the daily life and daily agenda. And we have here two major implications. One is stemming from our aspiration of Ukrainian economy. So we have more and more ambitious on economic integration with the European Union, and it's not only a big projects on increasing export, but more on industrial cooperation and participation in open strategic autonomy. Because what we see is that a lot of global companies are actually moving their production facilities closer to the EU, closer to the core economic engine, to Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, using the benefits of free trade agreements. But in order to ensure this real, well, let's say, help and real participation in open autonomy, we need the practical implementation of the most ambitious technical elements of association agreement, namely the ACAA agreement. So that, and I'm glad that finally Ukraine is extremely close to the negotiation of this agreement on conformity assessment, which will bring the engineering knowledge of Ukraine into the same framework as the EU economies, and it will help to ensure industrial cooperation. The same applies to the all customs procedures, so the mutual recognition of authorized economic operators, participation in common transit. So all these elements which are embedded in the association agreements in different ways, so by general formulas or by extensive articles and annexes, they need to be implemented in order to ensure that all potential of the agreements is already used. But at the same time, what we see is that internal agenda of the European Union is oriented for the future in many areas, like in digital, in environment, in green policy, in almost every area. And here we see that these new directions of the EU agenda is rather challenging for association trio, because we based our relations with the EU on the idea of absorption of EU rules. But at the same time, especially in case of Ukraine, we see that Ukraine quite often is used as an example of competitor to the EU rather than partner to the EU, especially in agriculture. So we see the evidences that Ukraine is a natural partner of EU agriculture. So for example, so we are feeding EU animals that then we consume in different animal goods. So we supply up to 9 million tons of corn annually to the European Union, and it's used for feeding industry. So we are already in supply chain. The same for steel industry, for example, where we supply a lot of iron ore to the million tons of iron ore to EU steel industry. And we really part of this greater strategic autonomy and for steel. So we are not a source of overcapacity, but at the same time, we see that Eurofair as an industry still portray Ukraine as a competitor and source of overcapacity. Or, for example, there is a prejudice about carbon leakage. So that in climate policy, and we see no evidence that in any scenario that there will be a carbon leakage to Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia from any climate initiatives of the European Union. Quite otherwise, by the mere nature of association agreement, we already within the EU environmental policy, because we undertook a lot of obligations in environmental policy. That's why we believe that the association agreement should be taken into account in developments of all new policies of the European Union, in Green Deal, in all initiatives, starting from general climate law, ending with carbon border adjustment mechanism, and the same for other projects. And of course, we need to overcome this prejudice about competitive advantages of companies. So that's from the EU and companies from association trio. In no instance we are competitor to the EU producers, but at the same time, usually companies from our states are really described as a competitors, as enemies, and that's why this is the thing that we would like to overcome, and that's why we need new kind of dialogue on business to business level, on involvement of companies, on understanding the economic engine of our states, and how we can help to achieve the internal EU goals, policy goals, especially in climate law. So that's why this is a challenge for the future, and we believe that the association agreement should be taken more seriously in all these initiatives. And I think the ambition of all of our states is to be included inside the framework of new EU initiatives, like European Economic Area is included, so that in the same manner and in the same way. So this is a task for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Kachka. Very, very good points indeed. Tectonic impact for the association agreement and DCFTAs, and thank you for highlighting the level of ambition, the fact that you want to go further than this. You mentioned, and this is very good because this is what the importance of dialogue is, to also mention the challenges linked to some of the future-focused agendas, such as, but not limited to, for instance, the Fit for 55 package, CBAM, and so on and so forth, while also mentioning some of the issues linked to industrial synergies. Ultimately, also, you made a very good bridge into the area of trade, and you mentioned open strategic autonomy. So we could have no better follow-up than Mr. Iuliu Winkler, who is the Vice Chair of the International Trade Committee in the European Parliament, and also First Vice President of SME Europe. I'm happy to give Mr. Winkler the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, moderator. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. About myself, maybe just one or two more things. I am a member of the European Parliament, elected in Romania, so I come from the neighborhood of our neighborhood, geographically speaking. And in previous terms of the European Parliament, I have been working as rapporteur or shadow rapporteur on the files for also the DCFTAs of Moldova and Georgia, and also several times for the macro financial assistance granted to those Eastern Partnership countries, as I am very sure I clearly will promote and vote in the International Trade Committee for the two files that are currently now on the table, the MFA for Moldova and the emergency intervention towards Ukraine. So this being said, I would like also to acknowledge our distinguished representatives of the associated trio and their very complex and very complete interventions. Mariam Gabunia, Vlad Cuc, and Taras Kachka, thank you very much for all those informations. And I would say I'm very happy to hear that really the association agreements and the DCFTAs between the European Union and the associated trio member countries are bearing fruits. They have clear results. We could also speak about statistics, but I don't think that in the 5 minutes I have been given, the figures will be possible to be mentioned. But anyway, the statistics show that our cooperation is growing. This is very important, and also it's important to go beyond the economic cooperation, as you have very rightly pointed out from all your three countries' perspective. What we want to do is having a social impact, having a focus on people and bettering the life of people and communities. So as a political stance here in the European Parliament, I would say that we more or less agree, all political groups, that the decision of whom to cooperate has to be the sovereign right of any state, of any country. So it is also a sovereign right of your countries to make those decisions. This was the case in the past, it has to be the case in the future, but we see that this is now increasingly called into question. We see that foreign interference, as it is highlighted by one of the special committees of the European Parliament, which was working on foreign interference and disinformation, challenges this sovereign right and is attempting to influence the democratic processes of the states. So yes, you have all said it in one way or another. We are living in a complex geopolitical context. We are seeing instability, and so it is more important than ever that we have to maintain good relations. We as the European Union have to maintain good relations with our like-minded neighbors. So dialogue and diplomacy must be employed to smoothen the differences, to ease the tensions, and to build a better way forward. And with all this in mind, I would like to acknowledge also the establishment of the associated trio, but also the progress and the gradual development that has been obtained in the last years, even in the very, very difficult context of the pandemic, which influenced all ways of building partnership and all ways of even trade and economic and investment relations. So this is a situation in which we live, namely that there is an interdependence between the European Union and the partnership trio countries. So you have mentioned also some synergies which can be built up. And one very important thing that I would like to repeat is that in our path towards more resilience and building up the new kind of economy and the new kind of society after the coronavirus crisis, we have a double path as a European Union. It is the path of the digital transition and the green sustainable transition. And I think that synergies can be found along these two transformations. And it is very, very clear that if we discuss about energy security, if we discuss about strategic communication, if we discuss about healthcare, connectivity, as you have mentioned, and investment, by the way, just the recent, I think there are always good signs, just the recent decision in December 15 about the new investments in all three of your countries. I think all those are very important, and so I think that all those are opportunities to enhance our relationship and deepen sectoral integration in many areas of mutual interest. There was, I will not answer it, but just to acknowledge the very interesting question, the first question in the chat about how to increase the intra-group trade and economic relations between Moldova, Georgia, and Ukraine. That is very, very important, and I think that you can use the associated trio also for enhancing, not can, have to use the associated trio also for enhancing reciprocal trade and economic relations. So with this, just a final political statement, if I am allowed, I will remain a strong supporter of Moldova, of Georgia, of Ukraine, of the associated trio, and of all the help I can give in your path towards European future and better coordination and more economic trade and investment relations with the European Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Winkler, for that statement, and also for your added value on discussing some of the synergies that can be touched upon on the fact that we need to go beyond economy and have an impact at the local level, at the society level, at the community level, and the fact that that the sovereign rights of states to make strategic decisions must be preserved. You also mentioned the hybrid element and the foreign interference, disinformation, so security-related aspects, which is very, very much, again, a very good bridge to our next speaker, Mr. Lukas Mandl, also a member of the European Parliament, Vice Chair of the Subcommittee on Security and Defense, and member of the Committee on Foreign Affairs. Mr. Mandl, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, and thanks, first of all, to the distinguished speakers I have listened to carefully, and I'm more than happy about all the motivation, engagement, and energy that's into this process. And I want to thank the SME Europe organization, the Union of Entrepreneurs and Employers, and the European Enterprise Alliance for organizing today's event and for putting us together, because we have to speak in order to establish future wealth and future cooperation in the best sense. As we have heard, I'm active in the Security and Defense Committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee, but I have always economy on my mind, because it's economy that binds us together, and that means opportunities for future generations. And security and peace is a precondition for economy. And what I highly appreciate about today's event is that we do both at the same time. We know about the threats geopolitically, the threats in terms of security, especially in the region we are talking about today, but for all Europe. And we deal with these threats on a daily basis at the moment. Each and every EU institution is doing that, also the European Parliament, especially we in the Foreign Affairs Committee and the other respective committees. But at the same time, we deal with economy, the future, cooperation, and that's why I'm more than happy that I have the opportunity to join today's event. I highly appreciate the whole title of the format, the EU+3 format, because as a geopolitical actor, I feel reminded on the so-called 17+1 format. Today it's only 16+1 format. We know what that means, and we know what the difference we make on the planet if societies based on human dignity and individual freedom and free market economy cooperate in such a format. And this is why all Europe can highly appreciate the EU+3 format. We have already heard a lot from all the three involved countries and economies, Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. I was happy to receive 2 weeks ago the Foreign Affairs Committee chair of the Georgian Parliament in the European Parliament. We had a very good chat, not only about the current threats, but also about future opportunities. And now I can also state that I had the opportunity to visit Ukraine around 10 days ago. And I also saw there that this country is dealing with the threats at the same time, but also strengthening economy and reaching out to all the world, especially to the European Union, for better ties and for good cooperation. And this is what we are talking about today as well. Let me go deeper into two things that were decided on in December, not that long ago, but very, very important for our future cooperation. The one is that the Eastern Partnership Summit in December highlighted the importance of enhancing security dialogue and cooperation in the areas of CSDP, so of Common Security and Defense Policy. And this is close to my heart, but I guess important for all the region and also for economy, as already mentioned. And also in December, it was the European Council that decided to provide a package of support under the European Peace Facility of several millions to the respective countries, 31 to Ukraine, 12.7 to Georgia, and 7 to Moldova, to assist in strengthening resilience and defense capabilities, focusing in particular on cybersecurity, what we have already heard from the distinguished speakers today, medical engineering, mobile and logistical capabilities. And this is exactly the field where I want to focus on, because there is not, let's say, a huge gap between the security areas and the economy areas. They are very, very much interconnected, as all European countries are interconnected, no matter whether they are EU member states or Eastern Partnership countries, as the three mentioned ones. We are all interconnected, and that's why we're working together and sitting together and reflecting together on these issues seems so important to me. I want to draw your attention on two fields where we can even cooperate more in the future. The one is the field of PESCO projects of permanent structured cooperation of the armed forces, not only of EU member states, as it was in the past, but also of so-called third countries, which are not EU member states. We are already cooperating in PESCO with the armed forces of Norway, the USA, and Canada, which are not EU member states. I personally work a lot for cooperation in PESCO also with Switzerland and the UK. And of course, there are many good reasons also to involve Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova into PESCO projects. There are more than 60 PESCO projects ongoing, from military mobility to fighting biological threats, for example. So there are many different fields where we can work together and cooperate. And of course, this also enhances our economic and business relation, which means welfare and job for the future, job creation. And the EU will also continue to promote the peaceful settlement of unresolved conflicts, conflict prevention, confidence building, and reconciliation efforts. Assistance to conflict-affected populations will be strengthened, along with the role of women and young people in peace building. You all know this EU approach named More for More and Less for Less. And this is what we will remain with. And the EU+3 format, given the whole geopolitical situation, is an amazing sign of hope. It's not less than that, it's a sign of hope, because we cooperate in business. That means to cooperate also in education, and that means to cooperate also in security. This accompanies a positive business development, positive economic development, future opportunities and welfare for all our societies. And this is the field where we have to stick together. And other parts of Europe, other parts of the world are provided with a positive example by this EU+3 format, because in other parts of the world, it's not that clear that countries, smaller countries, larger countries, neighbor countries, work together and cooperate together. Sometimes there are still conflicts more present than the economic relation. So it's much better to work on the economic relation, as all of you do, and as this today's event underlines, and that's what I highly appreciate. Thank you again for having the opportunity to be a part of it. All the best.
Mr. Mandl, thank you very much for your contribution, for highlighting this nexus and the synergies that are there between the security and the economic fields. And then you did very well so we heard a lot about possible avenues for security cooperation, not only to the CSDP field, but also to PESCO, European Peace Facility, some of the capacity building programs that are there, which are extremely important. Lastly, I think that one of the main takeaways from your contribution is that the EU+3 format is a format of like-minded partners that share the same values. So it is something that we salute and we want to grow further. Now, happy to turn over to the academic perspective. We will have some statements here from Teona Lavrelashvili, first of all, project manager of the European Party Monitor and a doctoral researcher at the Public Governance Institute. And then we will have Krzysztof Nieczypor from the Eastern Studies Institute. Happy to give the floor to Ms. Lavrelashvili for 5 minutes. You have the floor.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you very much for invitation. I think it is very timely debate that we are discussing today. So as Mr. Cuc already mentioned, we have already good news, that is that the latest summit of the Eastern Partnership has acknowledged the trio process as such. And I remember that a few days ago, so Commissioner Várhelyi, who was attending the event organized in the framework of the European Party Monitor project, mentioned very clearly that he welcomes this trio process as an idea and welcomes the new initiatives also within this framework. So of course, I think that I agree also with the speakers that we have to really think about the how to strengthen the political dimension on the one hand and also economic dimension of this trio process, right? Because we feel that we have to move forward. So what is next? So this is the main question. So and now, I mean, maybe it's a separate debate. So how we should strengthen the political dimension of the trio project itself, thinking about strengthening the coalition around the trio process, and for instance, also thinking to get inspiration maybe from the Berlin process that the Western Balkans were benefiting and still are benefiting. Of course, it matters quite less what we are going to call this process. What really matters is that we develop a platform, a functional platform to promote the economic and political integration. And that brings me, I think, to the main point that I believe could help us as well to strengthen the economic dimension of the cooperation. And this is trying to think how to coordinate the investment, let's say, cooperation. And in that regard, I think that why not to think about creation of the trio investment platform, which would help Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine to unify their forces in attracting the investments on the one hand, but also improving the trilateral economic cooperation, because without the sub-regional interconnectiveness and relations, it will be quite difficult to envision the trio itself. And why do we need, from my perspective, the coordination when it comes to the investments? And I would argue that the key reason is that this CFTA, which our speakers already mentioned, that it is a success story indeed, and we know that it is working, but we also know that there are challenges. And I believe that one of the most important challenges what this CFTA is currently facing is that, for instance, on the case of Georgia, we know that we don't really export that much. And why? Because the majority of the investments, it's really going into the infrastructure projects, while production sector is really left aside, and the private investments, they tend to go to financial sector. And of course, other problems related to lack of expertise about getting licenses and so on. But the big issue, I believe, is that we need to also focus on the production sector. And that's why I believe that this investment platform, or we can also, it's kind of draft idea on which we can work together and develop further. I believe that it has a potential to raise awareness of the investment potential of the trio countries across Europe, to attract investors, particularly in the production sector, as I mentioned, increase effectiveness of the coordination of the information exchange, and then this would also create better possibilities to think about the guarantees for the investors. So second, to coordinate the potential of the development banks in addressing the challenges of the capacity building of the local businesses. And I believe that this can also help us to develop better engagement, investment engagement with the local businesses. And then finally, of course, improve the possibilities of sub-regional integration, also bringing the potential of private and public investments. So I would appreciate your reaction on this, on how to pool these resources of these trio countries to really foster the investment cooperation. And I believe that the end goal, of course, and our speakers already mentioned that is somehow trying to find out what is the next milestone for Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova on their EU integration path. And I believe that, of course, what matters is that enhancing this institutional cooperation, and what MEP Lukas Mandl mentioned, for instance, also involving Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova in PESCO platforms is a very important dimension of this diversification of the institutional, let's say, setting where we have to envision this trio process. And finally, I believe that, of course, in the absence of the EU enlargement perspective to Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova, this trio, associate trio, should be understood as a momentum, as a new momentum, that we have to seize this opportunity and try to really make a functional vision how Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova could achieve their rapprochement to the European Union without membership at this point, but of course being and benefiting from all the goods that the European Union is giving to its partners, to Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm looking also forward to your further feedback on this.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lavrelashvili. Good contributions as well, particularly the idea of strengthening economic cooperation through investment. I think it is important to note that the EAP did not only acknowledge and welcome the trio, but it was also some discussions, at least at the level of the Commission, on how the Global Gateway infrastructure program could potentially have a role also in the Eastern Partnership. So I'd like to quickly switch over now to Mr. Nieczypor for 5 minutes. Please try to stick to your time as we're running out, and we would be good to have a discussion at the end as well. Thank you, Mr. Nieczypor, you have the floor.
Sure. Good evening. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you can hear me well. Thank you for joining me to the conversation and give me the opportunity to make a short commentary. Very short, because I have only 5 minutes, so no time to lose, as you Tudor said. As we can evaluate from the perspective of 10 months of the initiative existence, the establishment of the associated trio is, on the one hand, the expression of the desire for integration with the European Union, and at the same time, it is the expression of the impatience towards the attitude of the European Union, which is not able or do not have enough political will to meet the expectation for membership of these countries in the organization. And the main factor determining the authorities of all 3 countries of associated trio to obtain the perspective of membership in the EU is to meeting the expectations of its societies. In all 3 countries, a significant part of the society expresses the will to join the European Union. And this demand means that the political elite wishing to gain or remain in power must seriously consider it. And this is clear, I think. And this is clearly seen in the example of Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelensky stated during his election campaign in 2019, in the context of Ukraine's accession to the European Union, that he never goes anywhere as a guest without being invited. This expressed his skepticism towards applying for membership in a situation where Ukraine was not invited to the EU at all. However, the Ukrainian president quickly changed his mind, properly recognizing the mood of Ukrainian society and becoming a zealous and determined supporter of Ukraine's accession to the European Union. In September last year, he called his own attitude as audacious, declaring being assertive and firm to demand a concrete date of Ukraine's accession to EU. And according to Zelensky, the decision should be made here and now. And this attitude can be seen in almost every of his meetings with EU officials, when he directly formulates a demand for the date of Ukraine's accession to European international structures. This approach characterizes to some extent Georgia also, which intends to apply for membership in 2024. And this though is the main part of the agenda of the associated trio. However, I have a fundamental concerns whether this attitude will bring positive results and whether it will probably bring more harm and good than good, as the direct demand for membership of the European Union may turn out to be counterproductive. The attitude of Western politicians gives no hope of gaining such a perspective in the foreseeable future, especially as many of them take seriously the threats of formulated by Russia. Therefore, the demand for the perspective of membership in a situation where it is not possible to obtain it will only arouse growing disappointment and may result in growing Euroscepticism among the inhabitants of Ukraine and other countries of the associated trio. And this tendency is already shown in the public opinion polls conducted in December last year by the New Europe Center in Ukraine, according to which the number of people who believe that Ukraine should implement pro-European reforms, even if it does not gain membership, has decreased by 5%. And on the other hand, the number of people who believe that Ukraine does need these reforms in such a case had increased to 16%. At the same time, if the membership perspective is not granted, the largest number of respondents, almost 25%, believe that Ukraine should no longer apply for membership in the Union and rely solely on itself. And only 18% expressed the expectation that the Ukrainian authorities should continue the pro-European course even without the membership perspective. So therefore, I have a question for the representative of Ukraine. Do you think that formulating overly exaggerated expectation will not cause too much disappointment in Ukrainian society and consequently turn the Ukrainians away from Europe and convince them that without membership perspective, there is no need to carry out pro-European reform, which are, after all, must needed by Ukraine itself and Ukrainians, not European Union. So it would be also very interesting to know the opinions of representatives of Moldova and Georgia. Thank you very much.
Mr. Nieczypor, thank you very much for your intervention. Indeed, so it's not only a desire to integrate, but there's also an impatience. Wherever there is enchantment, there might also be disenchantment. So this is certainly something that we need to keep in mind. Now, in the interest of time, I will quickly pass over the floor to the business representatives. First of all, to Agata Boutanos from the Union of Entrepreneurs and Employers in Poland, ZPP. You have 5 minutes, madam, please.
Thank you very much. Dear honorable members of the European Parliament, dear ministers, distinctive speakers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to be part of today's discussion. My name is Agata Boutanos. I represent Union of Entrepreneurs and Employers towards the European Union in Brussels. We are a Polish organization, an employers organization, standing for over 500,000 jobs and over 50,000 members and representing them for over 10 years. We represent small and medium-sized enterprises. Developing relations and continued cooperation with Eastern Europe is an important part of development and daily relations in our union that followed closely the jointly policy initiative development of Eastern Partnership and the associated trio. In Poland, we have followed the path of the accession to the EU and the enormous progress opportunity for our society, economy, and relations that came with it. We are proud to already work with organizations from Ukraine and since last month through European Enterprise Alliance, also with Alliance of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises from Moldova. We look forward to develop further contacts with organizations from Georgia and other Eastern Partnership countries. Today's addresses and the consecutive meetings between the European Union and the representatives of Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, and other Eastern European countries, Eastern Partnership countries, I'm sorry, and more broadly, the region proved that we are talking about the initiative with a major importance for all of us in the European Union. Throughout the years of growing trade, deeper economic integration and investments in SMEs, connectivity, and opportunities arising from the digital development, but also changes in the energy sector and services harmonization, comes a picture of a more and more attractive business environment that we see clearly in increasing trade between Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, and EU countries. Economic exchange between Poland and Moldova increased by 20% comparing to 2019, Georgia 4%, and Poland, we are very proud to be the third most important trade partner for Ukraine with over $7 billion trade exchange. Representing business perspective, I would like to underline at that point that it is crucial to strengthen the already developed association by further support for the EU standards implementation, especially to unleash the full potential for the SMEs, the intra-regional trade and the harmonization of key policies, connectivity, and continuation of the program like Erasmus+. We welcomed including support of the Eastern Partnership countries in the EU 2021-2027 multi-annual financial framework to provide funding for a further regulatory integration process into the areas of digital single market, energy, climate, and transport that will further facilitate the economic cooperation. My question to the panelists would be, what, in your opinion, business organizations from the EU could do to support further integration? And secondly, what, in your opinion, should be the next steps from the trio and Eastern Partnership perspective to unleash its full solidarity, economic, and the societal potential? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Boutanos. Indeed, work at the level of the unions is indeed vital. This shows that cooperation can and must be multifaceted. We will get back hopefully to the questions at the end. Now I'd like to pass the floor to Mr. Damir Filipovic, who's Secretary General of the European Enterprise Alliance. You also have the floor, sir, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. So I am Damir Filipovic, Secretary General of the European Enterprise Alliance. We are basically the business organization at the EU level based in Brussels, and we are trying to, let's say, cover the interest of the businesses, small and big, in the countries of the Central and Southeastern Europe, but also Eastern Partnership. So we are very proud to have members from Moldova, from Ukraine and Belarus for the moment, and of course we are open for other countries as well. What I would say is that, of course, Eastern Partnership and whatever I would say is considered as a pragmatic and useful collaboration between the countries covered now through the Eastern Partnership is useful. It should be kept. I think it's necessary. It should continue. And now, of course, it's all, I would say, good in a sense that it's a sort of the good recipe. The thing is that, of course, we need to see now, since time goes by, previous speakers were mentioning there is a very complex geostrategic, let's say, situation, not only from today, it's actually kind of growing in the last couple of years, and it will continue in the years to come. So we have to see how to adapt and how to basically find the best modalities of, let's say, inclusion of the Eastern Partnership and trio countries into, I would say, economic life also of Europe and European Union, and then to see how to expand this in a societal way, in a political way, and also in security way, because I think actually all of these components are working together. I would say that a possible approach could be also to look at the sectoral approach as a pragmatic way forward. I mean, energy is obviously one of the sectors. It's very pertinent these days. So we have to have in mind potentials of the let's say, energy crisis. I wouldn't say we have it, but obviously there are some issues that are definitely related to energy supply. And then, of course, like in the EU, if there are parts of the Eastern Partnership countries they want to, let's say, move together with certain topics or certain areas of common interest, I think that should be welcomed and it should be supported, both politically, economically, and in any other, I would say, ways. I mean, we have examples in the EU, like we have Eurozone, Schengen, patents, which not all of the member states are part of, but it's open for everybody. So I think that this could be done with the trio countries. Even if the EU membership is not within the reach, so to say, in maybe foreseeable time, I think that other mechanisms which were all mentioned today, so trade, energy, security, education, and also other areas like digital, green transition, all of these can bring tangible benefits to those countries and also to the EU, and they can fit in close because those countries fit close to the Europe because they're European neighborhood, they are direct neighborhood of EU member states, and they're already having growing ties with many of the EU countries, especially in the immediate neighborhood. So we heard from Romania, Poland, Baltic countries. So I would say that politics can help in the sense that it can open the ways. And as far as I see, there is a very useful work in the European Parliament, very open-minded, and I would say open to inclusion of those countries into all the ways possible to the basically streams of the European Union. What we can think as the European Enterprise Alliance is we can serve as a sort of the bridge, because I already mentioned we cover basically countries from the Eastern Partnership, but also from the immediate neighborhood of those countries like Baltics, Poland, and then to basically maybe define some sort of the urgent, let's call it examples or areas where to work together, like energy, transport, environment and climate change, digital transformation, education, and then support in addressing impact of COVID crisis. I would also mention one thing which is important, which was partially, let's say, mentioned, like security and also cybersecurity, where I think Europe can help those countries to, let's say, cope with this. I think that in these areas we can show some tangible results with real impact on people, and then also to think about further integration in programs like Horizon Europe and Erasmus. I think that this kind of a package would be nice, and my question to the panelists would be, what do you think is, let's say, possible in a very short to mid-term to do in that way? And what would we expect from organizations like ours, how we can support? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Filipovic. Indeed, pragmatism should be the word of the day. Pragmatism is key. Thank you for also highlighting your work and the priorities that you see on sectoral discussions, such as energy security, transport, education, and healthcare. Now, I would like to turn over the floor to Mr. Horst Heitz, who is the chair of the steering committee of SME Connect and executive director of SME Europe. Once again, please, sir, keep it short so we can also have the reactions of the trio. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tudor. Thank you to be in this round. I have to say it's high level. It's a very interesting discussion. I want to highlight really the political dimension of SMEs. SME Connect is a network. It's one of the largest SME networks in Europe. It's representing over 2 million SMEs. And SMEs are really key for the European societies and not only for business. I think when we speak about peace, democracy, and prosperity, what we learned in competition of systems of China, not only economically grow is the solution that leads us to democracy and stability. A strong middle class, a strong SMEs are basic and fundamental for democracies. So the exchange here between our countries are really essential. And I think also if you're thinking deeper, we should also see that that there are different interests. We're coming to a political momentum of SMEs. SMEs are 99.9% of the entrepreneurs, and they have 2/3 of the employees. And if we come into discussion, and I think it was a very good comment for Mr. Kachka, that there's also ideas about competition. Not everybody is happy if the markets are open. Not everybody is happy about trade. But I think the majority, the ecosystem of SMEs entrepreneurs wants to have free trade. They want to have exchange with you. But then you have also to fight about their opinions, about work together with these associations, this informal part, what is leading to the public opinion. Because in the European Union, it's many things also driven by public opinion. And SMEs are key, essential for that. Show them that there is cooperation possible, that there is a gaining. But we had the same discussion when Romania, Poland was joining. Oh, cheap workers, will be competition who is unfair and so on. What we have now, the European Union gained so much, but it's about trust, like in business. And I think it's really important that we inviting as SME organization, your SMEs, your organization to be your ambassadors here, and that we can help you. And we coming to your countries to be the ambassadors, because it's often also a misunderstanding, because business culture is not always the same, but talking and exchange, this is basic and fundamental, and we inviting you to SME Connect and also to the other community, ZPP and the other partners that we here really want to be involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Heitz. Indeed, SMEs and a strong middle class are fundamental for a healthy democracy. So I think in this, we also have an opportunity for European Union and TRIO SMEs to work together and maybe really kickstart this associated TRIO at the level of entrepreneurs and businesses. Now, I'd like to pass the floor to Michael Jäger, who is the CEO of the European Economic Senate. You also have 5 minutes, sir. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Because I have to leave my normal conference room, I don't know, technical problems. That's also Europe. Sometimes things are not working as we expect, but it's fine that we have we are flexible as entrepreneurs. I think that's a very important event. Why? Because we talk not only about one country, we talk about very different countries, also from the size and also from the background, also from the European position and geographical location. So Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova, what do you have in common? You all these countries, what we hear today, you did a good approach, you got very good things, incentives to generate a foreign direct investment, and you do a lot of things for growth and for wealth in your country. And I think that's the best peace project if we have a free trade, best like Georgia with US and the European Union. And I think it's important that we look what can we learn from each other. Even we Germans, we have now a very different government to former years, 3 political parties, and we do not know what we can expect. So normally you have the left wing, socialists, libertarians, but you don't know in this picture what will come. And what you do, independent of your political party system, you do lots for investment. I think that's the right approach. And I think we have to look what can be done. And for us, with the taxpayers movement, with the Economic Senate, it's not an unfair competition if Moldova make hubs for investment, or Georgia has a free trade agreement with Europe and US in parts, or Ukraine is doing a lot of incentives to generate investment in this country. Because why? We think it's fair, because it's open to everyone and it's transparent. And so I think the best peace project is to trade, the exchange, to have a cultural respect. And I think if we continue in this way, a deeper relation with European Union, we all will have a big benefit. It's a peace project, and it will stabilize your political systems too. If you have such an exchange, if such a trade, such markets, if you join European Union, you have an access to a big market, and also we, with our European Union, we have an access to your market too. And we could really benefit if it's the agricultural sector, if it's IT, if it's human capital. So I think it's a very interesting approach. And we, with the taxpayers, European Economic Senate, and Horst Heitz, he's leading all these offices like SME. It's how to say, we try to concentrate it in one person in Brussels. I think it's a very interesting approach. And please tell us what we can do to support you, because we are in favor of reforms for growth and for wealth for everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jäger. Very good that you highlighted the importance of knowing one another. I think this is a key concept for these days. And through this mutual knowledge about one another, we can also foster trust for business and investment relationships. Another key conclusion, I think, is that trade is the best peace project. We should put this on a t-shirt. Now, last but not least, from Mr. Marko Toson, President of Confindustria in Ukraine. Please, sir, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much to everybody. Thanks for the invitation and for the people that speak today before me. And it was interesting to participate to this forum and to this understanding of this cooperation between Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. For me, it's the first time approaching this type of platform. I'm president of Confindustria. Confindustria is the biggest association of Italy for supporting the Italian investment activity in the Ukrainian market. We represent around in Italy 150,000 companies, big and small companies. Confindustria is quite powerful activity, and we are present in Ukraine from around 5 years. And me personally, I'm a businessman and activity there in Ukraine from around 20 years. Ukraine in this moment, we are not present as a Confindustria in Moldova and Georgia, and we will be very glad to open also there a base, because from what I understand also from the Excellent Ministry, there is a big trend also in the agriculture sector and other sector for the IT technology, which is quite interesting for Italian company to develop and to be interactive on this. In this moment, we have a quite big action of Italian company making investment activity in Ukraine. For sure, in this moment, is quite frozen the activity during the situation in this moment for alert and for this instability of the things. But still, the trading between Italy and Ukraine last year been double the activity and increase a lot the potential in the market. I believe a lot in this type of cooperation between different countries, because in the Confindustria, we have a Confindustria East Europe, which is composed by 12 countries, which is Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Montenegro, many other countries, which we interchange activity and product between all the other partner of this. For sure, Italian investment in other countries, Romania, for example, start much early than Ukraine. So we have, for example, in Romania, 56,000 Italian companies present there, registered in Romania. Okay, we have much less in Ukraine, but with big trend in this moment to increase the activity there in Ukraine, because Ukraine is a quite nice country for activity, for production, for technology, for interchange. Plus, we have a lot of interchange activity between Ukraine and Italy. We now try to support this instability things, and very good that there is this type of platform which can increase the relation between different sectors, quite energy, agriculture, IT technology, and this. And I believe that we can win only if we can be shared together activity and strategy. Okay, especially in this moment of aggression of Russia, which did not start now, but start 2014 and much early. Okay, but having a common deal, common position in this, we can win and try to have strength activity on the things. Either in the political way, thanks to the intervention before of the people of ministry, and the economical people. If we have strength activity together, we can win on this and make this area quite intensive activity together with European community. Thank you very much for the patient on this. I'm available for any other question, any activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toson. Indeed, very important to see also that there is an important role for the national associations, and that national associations can really further European goals, not only at the business level, but also in terms of building people-to-people contact and this mutual understanding that Mr. Jäger was talking about. So thank you very much, sir. Now I would like to pass the floor back to the trio representatives. For some reactions to what has been said by the MEPs, by the academic representatives, by the business representatives. I know that this might be an impossible task, but if you could please keep your statements to 2 to 3 minutes, that would be very highly appreciated. So I would start then once again with Madam Mariam Gabunia from Georgia. Please, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you again for today's very fruitful discussion. So I'm really honored to participate in today's discussions, and I understand the time constraints, and I would be brief. I would like just to reflect on some of the questions that was posed during the discussion. And first of all, that is a membership perspective. Of course, it is very important to have a clear picture of membership perspective, especially now when in Georgia, and I believe in Ukraine and Moldova also, we are in a phase of implementing the most sensitive part of reform agenda, because during the negotiations we have tried to take longer transitional periods for sensitive reforms, and now that it is a time for those reforms, and it is very important for the visibility of EU integration process to show to the population why we are doing so sensitive reforms, of course. But on the other hand, it is very important to have a proper messaging for the population why we are doing these reforms, and simply how in Georgia we are doing that is that we are trying to convince our population and public that we are implementing those reforms not only because that is our commitment under the association or DCFTA agreement, but because that is reforms that are very important in order to improve the life of our population. Let's say to have more safe products on our market, to have more safe environment generally in Georgia, and many other good things that European Union member countries have. So that is a messaging, and of course that is very important for visibility of EU integration process. And the second one that I wanted to reflect is the business dimension of the associated trio, and we understand well that it is very important to have the joint cooperation projects among the trio members and among the businesses of trio members. And we are thinking about that. We are already discussing to have a joint investment platforms or business platforms. And I have highlighted that on the 1st April, we have the third ministerial meeting. And during that meeting, we will have also dedicated panel for business interventions. In all these 3 countries, we have a business, European business associations represented. So, and we have some joint initiatives with the Commission. We are discussing that with the Commission to have some kind of joint e-platform for these European business associations, where online platform where the European Business Association members can have their portfolios, and this would be a good platform for joint investment proposals to discuss all of those proposals. So many initiatives with regard of business dimension of the trio, and we would be very willing to cooperate with all the participants of today's discussions, how better we can reshape these initiatives. Thank you very much. That was very briefly.
Thank you very much, Madam Gabunia. Now I'd like to pass the floor to a Moldovan representative. We now have Cristina Ceban, who is the head of the Department of International Economic Cooperation within the Ministry of Economy. You have the floor, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, it is a great pleasure to be here and to participate in this discussion. It's very important for us because, as it was mentioned, the signing of the association agreement and DCFTA with the European Union is one of the most strategical activity that Moldova can confirm in the last years. And we are firmly to our European path. And if we are talking about the cooperation between the 3 countries, Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia, it is worth to mention that we collaborate on the framework of our informal DCFTA ministerial meetings. Why we are looking forward for the next meeting. And as it was mentioned, one of the priorities that will be discussed or will be analyzed during this meeting is the joint investment, some joint investment platforms that could be created between our countries. As well, at the same time, I want to say that this new EU+3 format associated trio should in practice mean new political horizons of cooperation. We can examine more subjects of common interest, and having in mind that we have the same tools of operating on markets, because all countries are committed somehow to bring their legislation to the European acquis. So it will bring us new horizons and new instruments to deepen our economic integration and to deepen and to widen people-to-people contacts. This should be a benefit for all sides, and it should bring more stability, more prosperity to the region, to the eastern neighborhood. And as a general approach, Moldova will be guided by the jointly agreed priorities on bilateral level and with the European Union, our engagement with the European Union. So we think that it's a very good platform, and we should develop this kind of platform in our cooperation with our main partners. And it is important for our country to advance sectoral cooperation with the identification of new, let's say, ideas or new sectors to be examined, to be discussed in the same format. So therefore, we welcome and support the trio's advancement initiatives, and we will continue our joint dialogue on all these platforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Choban. I see that Mr. Cuc is also still here. Would you like the floor, sir, for 2 minutes, maybe for some concluding remarks before I pass on to the...
Don't want to monopolize. Thanks you. Basically, what Christina said is indeed reflects our approach on investments, and to idea what Teona said. I think it would be, I mean, frankly speaking, it would be difficult to cooperate on private investments, because I think each country is fighting for attracting private investments and creating some opportunities, special opportunities for them. But indeed, the development assistance and development banks investments are something which is like EBRD or EIB from EU. This is what we are, I think, all looking for. And the best, one of the best things, of course, would be infrastructure. And TNT, you know, connectivity, the TNT corridors, that's something which we have been agreed in 2017 back in Eastern Partnership, and still looking forward to move ahead on this. So that would be a great area of cooperation, not only among TRIO, but also with other partners, but among TRIO first of all, and of course, attracting the investments. On the general question on perspective, of course, we are also looking for European perspective. It's a political matter. I must admit, sometimes in the society, in political circles, different countries treat it differently. We try to be realistic, let's say, in Chisinau, working, let's say, more on delivering results, and a bit less with committing to, for example, or setting certain dates or timelines, because we understand the situation in Europe but also in our countries is not always conducive too. So we are really moving on results. But again, there are specifics in each of our countries. Thanks. That's the only remark, and thanks for a very interesting event.
Thank you very much, Mr. State Secretary. Now I'd like to pass over to Mr. Deputy Minister Taras Kachka for some concluding remarks. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. I think that we need to highlight with several important elements. So first of all, so I'm glad that we are talking about association trio. So, and this is so clear that in Black Sea, Moldova, Georgia, and Ukraine is absolutely different kind of partners with comparison with other Eastern Partnership participants. And with every year, so the situation is changing in different directions. We see that that the EU member states and Ukraine, we have very specific diplomatic relations with Belarus, and moving in absolutely different directions, and not naming even Russia with its aggression. But on the business level, I think that now the association trio is already an area and an example of ever greater cooperation of small and medium enterprises, either between Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, and with the EU member states as well. And I think this is not an ambition for the moment, it is already a good result. So that every time we have a dialogue with our Moldovan colleagues or with Georgia and recently in Tbilisi, we had a really good dialogue in our bilateral commission, and we discussed particular examples of cooperation of small and medium enterprises. Of course, the issue of connectivity in Black Sea and then with the European Union is an issue for further development, but I think that all the issues are already on agenda of our bilateral talks and our regional talks. Therefore, I think that this is not only about politics, it's about the almost endless list of policy agenda between the EU and every state of association trio. That's why I think that every next year will bring more and more positive results in terms of economic integration, which will be based also for political integration in the end. So, and this is the, let's say, sum of all the discussion today. And I think that there is now a fight for greater awareness among all stakeholders for this. This is not an issue to be proved. It's rather an issue that needs to be communicated to everyone in order to be taken into account for further steps in the domain and the competence of every stakeholder. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. So this brings our event to its conclusion today. While I do apologize that we ran a bit over time, I think this was indeed a good investment for all of us in terms of broadening our knowledge on all the different opportunities that we have for cooperation between the European Union and the trio, whether it is infrastructure and connectivity, whether we talk about SMEs and entrepreneurship, green and digital agenda, the security economy, nexus, so on and so forth. The association trio has found much support here today. I think we can freely state this amongst MEPs, academics, business representatives. So this is good news, and these diplomatic efforts should go forward. To sum it up under one sentence, contrary to the well-known saying, I think in these complicated and complex times, it is indeed our friends that we should keep closer than our enemies. So thank you very much, everyone, for your kind participation today.